So we all have in our hand a copy of the Arizona Cardinals schedule. A reminder, the opponents, NFC South, AFC South, third place teams out of the NFC North, NFC East, and AFC North. Now, based on last year's schedule and the opponents' fifth easiest schedule on paper, Paul. The fifth easiest schedule, which means absolutely nothing. But I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Craig, let's just get it over with, all right? When are you going to Seattle? When do we have to stand in front of the 12s? What about Cincinnati? On to Cincinnati. When exactly is that? Tampa, Frizz factor? No, we need to know that. Let's just get the vitals out of the way right off the top here. Dani, what pressing question did you have going into the schedule release?
Well, players want to know when's the bye week.
That's true.
That's the first thing they're looking for. So some of the key takeaways right off the bat is Cardinals bye week is October 26th, which is week 8, right? So you're going to look for the bye week, you're going to look for the home opener, and then you're going to look for primetime games and weather games. And that's really how you break it down when you're taking a first glance at the schedule.
Well, since you asked, 2 primetime games. The Cardinals are going to be on Thursday night for the first time in 3 seasons. They will host the Seattle Seahawks, your team there, Paul, on Thursday Night Football. And then they've got a Monday night trip to the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you for not saying my Dallas Cowboys. It can be Paul's Seattle Seahawks, but just the Dallas Cowboys over here.
It's definitely somebody else's 12s. And you know what, 12s? That's what you get. You're going to have to travel on a weekday, on a short week to get on the road. If you want to come see your Seahawks in the AZ, guess what? It's going to require a midweek stay. And we all know the record of road teams on Thursday nights. So there's a lot to like about hosting Seattle on a Thursday. May I just say that?
Opening on the road at New Orleans. The home opener is week 2 against the Carolina Panthers. We'll go game by game or month by month, but just on the surface, you look at it, there's not a 3-game road trip or a 3-week road trip. The Cardinals do close with 3 out of 4 on the road, which, depending on where you are, and certainly having to travel to Houston. There's that trip to see Cincinnati there, Paul, in late December, which could be a little dicey, and closing on the road against the Rams. But how you start and how you finish, 2 of the first 3 on the road, 3 of the last 4 on the road.
Yeah, I'm looking at those last 5. Really, the last 6. If you want to look at the final 6 games to the season, considering Tampa, they're really bullish on what they're building. Todd Bowles and company, what they have going. So you got to go on the road for that one, albeit it's going to be decent weather, right? Late November. But then you have the Rams twice in the last 5 games. At Cincinnati, we know how the Bengals open seasons, and we know how the Bengals close seasons. So if you had your preference, you'd much rather play Cincinnati in September instead of late December or in January. And then you get the Rams twice once again, and Houston, C.J. Stroud and company. We know how good they've been the last couple of years. So the last 6 games of this schedule are daunting, no doubt.
Well, we should probably start with the start of the season, though. If there's one team in the entire league that you would want to see week 1, it's hard to argue anything other than the Saints, who just had their quarterback retire less than a week ago. So there's a lot of questions. You've got a first-time head coach in Kellen Moore out there in New Orleans. So there's the advantage right now where things stand before players truly take the field is heavily on the Cardinals. And then you open up at home week 2 against Carolina. Those are 2 games that, again, where things stand right now, which sounds a little silly to say, as those should be wins for the Cardinals. It's about as close to feeling that way as you can.
We are, smack dab in the middle of May. The season doesn't begin until September, so let's go month by month here. We can't really go quarter by quarter because you got a 17-game regular season as opposed to 16, but let's just break it down by month in the month of September. Week 1, September 7th, on the road at New Orleans. 3rd straight year the Cardinals are opening on the road. And Dani, as you mentioned, the big question, and it's going to be a question all offseason, is who is QB1 for New Orleans with Derek Carr announcing his retirement. You do have a couple of local high school standouts, though, competing for that job in Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck, and a first-year head coach. I don't know if I can look at it one of 2 ways, advantage and disadvantage. The advantage is, well, the Cardinals have all the experience. The disadvantage is, do you really know what you're going to see from the New Orleans
That
Saints?
is not a disadvantage, and I mean that in the least disrespectful way. Are you really expecting Tyler Shuck to come out and absolutely blow you out of the water week 1 is such a disadvantage? No, he wasn't, number 1, number 2 overall pick as a quarterback, right? We're not talking about a Cam Ward situation here. So no, I understand that argument from a larger picture. That was something we had talked about last year, getting ready to face Jaden Daniels with Washington early on and not having a lot of film there. I don't see how that could be an advantage for New Orleans given their personnel and what we know about them at this time.
Maybe it's just a game planning advantage for New Orleans, and maybe just for the first, drive or quarter or half, and Nick Rallis sits there and goes, okay, I've figured it out. Here's how we defend New Orleans.
Is it truly an advantage, though, of you might have an idea, but you still got to go up against the personnel? Look at how this Cardinals organization has beefed up their defensive line, for example, right? Like, you can know what the game plan is. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to go out and physically be able to dominate them.
Look, Tyler Shook, local kid, we get it. He's prototypical in a lot of ways, but if you look at his analytics, his stats when facing pass rushes, under pressure, throwing with men in his face, not good. And combined with the fact this will be his NFL debut, if indeed he's the guy, he's going to be given every single chance to be their starting quarterback. With the Cardinals' bolstered and revamped pass rush, that'll be really interesting. That'll be really interesting to see what the cause and effect there is with the Cardinals' defensive front against that particular rookie quarterback.
Here's a little nugget for you on pregame, Paul. The Cardinals have not beaten the Saints in New Orleans since 1996.
Really? Really?
Hey, that's just based off the
That
notes
was
that I
alive.
have.
That was the LaShawn Johnson
Barely.
250-yard game. I was at that game in 1996.
So we're having beignets and bourbon for breakfast?
Yeah, if Craig's
See you on
expense
Bourbon-
report.
see you on Bourbon Street,
We'll just
Paul.
put it out there. Exactly. You were just there for a wedding, Danny, so you know where to go. I'll follow you on that one.
So after the two of you survive Bourbon Street in week 1, you come home. There, that's probably better. Week 2, at home against the Carolina Panthers, because it wouldn't be a schedule without the Panthers showing up on the Arizona Cardinals schedule. Second straight year, 6th time in the last 7 years, the Cardinals will play the Panthers. This time, though, Paul, it's at home, and that's a little bit more of an advantage because the Cardinals don't typically do well on the road against the Panthers.
That is true. And you know what? That was probably the most disappointing loss of last season in a lot of ways. Just the way the Cardinals got behind in that first half, and they ultimately fell in overtime. So this is a payback game for what happened in Week 16 last year against Carolina. It's also a game against a team that had the worst defense in the league a year ago. They allowed a league worst 31-plus points per game. They allowed nearly 180 yards rushing per game. They had just 32 sacks, third worst. They have spent, and let's just put it this way, Carolina's owner, David Tepper, he can afford it. Hedge fund money, they spent nearly $250 million in free agency on their defense, Carolina. So they're trying. They're doing everything they can. Bryce Young had a nice finish to the end of last season. But once again, I think the Cardinals will be plenty motivated because in Week 2, they'll certainly remember what happened at the end of last season.
Cardinals then on the road for their first division game, Week 3 at San Francisco. Cardinals very good at Levi Stadium, 7-4. So the first time you'll see the 49ers, and it comes in Week 3.
This is a sneaky weather game. We talked about Cincinnati. We talked about Tampa Bay. San Francisco was brutal last year, and that was Week 4.
But it was only 89 degrees.
No. That was...
I don't know what the two of
that
you are
was
talking
falsified.
about.
Yeah, that was cooking the books. That's what that was.
I spent 2.5 hours in direct sunlight when you talk about the pregame radio show in the booth where I had to sit under a table for any sort of relief. And then I was on the field pregame for an hour and a half, and I will spare you guys the details, but I was sweating the entire day. Even when I made it back to the ice cold press box, I could not cool off. That was when the equipment staff was having to hold makeshift sunshades over the bench.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, it was there's only one team that would have won that game last year in those conditions, and it's the Arizona Cardinals, because the Cardinals had practiced in similar type weather that week leading up to that game, where photographers on the sideline had pictures of the temperature, the thermometers on the sideline, 111. So now that was record ridiculous. freak heat. As a couple of guys who grew up in the Bay Area, I mean, I've never seen anything even close to that. So I'm not expecting that. But is it trash talking, NFC West style, if I mark this down as a home game? Because the Cardinals pretty much own Levi's Stadium.
That's true.
Over the years. Honestly, I mark the Niners in Santa Clara down as a home game. I'm going to do that right now.
The 7 wins the Cardinals have at Levi's Stadium are more than any other team has at that venue.
That's a ding. And, yeah, there's just something about going in there. You know, the Niners and the Cardinals and the rivalry, and after the Cardinals swept the Niners last year and so much talk about 49ers rebounding from the 6-win season. Okay, we'll see. And Brock Purdy has played pretty well against his hometown team. And once upon a time, the Cardinals Player of the Year in high school. We get it. There's all the great storylines. But with Christian McCaffrey back, it's going to be a different challenge, presuming he's healthy and ready to go. And yet another reason why you bolstered your defensive front to stop, because when the Niners have beaten the Cardinals, it's almost certainly the last few years been when CMC has had a big game.
First true test, I think, of this schedule is this 2 games right here. You're on the road at San Francisco, and then a short week, a home game against the Seahawks. Thursday Night Football. By the way, Seattle is home to the Saints prior to that. So again, advantage Cardinals, you're at home. The Seahawks have to travel. It's not a quick flight from Seattle. And the Cardinals do get the first of what are 2 scheduled primetime games, and the first time in a long time playing on a short week on a Thursday night.
Back-to-back division games. I mean, the league wants to see the NFC West showdown early this season. And I still feel, and we talked about this earlier in the offseason when some of the moves were being made, this is the Cardinals' division to lose. When you're looking at consistency from the coaching staff, from the players, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive veterans, the presence that has been brought into this organization, the Cardinals have had a stellar offseason. And I think it's going to be a very competitive division season amongst all 4 teams. I really do think, though, the Cardinals have a huge advantage when you're looking around the NFC West at some of the changes the rest of those teams have been experiencing. I am curious, since the league announced draft weekend those rivalry jerseys, and the NFC West was one of the divisions that's going to be experiencing that. I wonder if that's going to be what we're going to see Thursday night against the Seahawks.
On a national level to debut those uniforms.
That makes total sense. Just tell me, please, Seattle doesn't come in wearing those neon green deals, where they look like the highlighter pen. I mean, is Seattle coming in wearing those? I don't know. Nobody's
I'm not
better.
privy to that information, Paul.
Nobody's better for that, especially the national TV audience. But you know what? The Cardinals and Seahawks have played some epic primetime games over the years, the last 10 to 15 years. And this could be yet another one of them.
Is my memory correct in that the last time the Cardinals had a Thursday night game was against the Saints, when Marco Wilson had that epic somersault off the pick 6?
Oh, yeah.
Andy Dalton? Is that...
Yes,
Yeah.
off
Good
Andy
memory.
Dalton. And the meme, right, of Dalton like throwing his hands up, walking off the field, and then in the background is Marco Wilson.
Slow motion.
With the full front flip.
That was
yeah,
great.
that was money.
That was a rare Thursday night home win for the Cardinals. They are 2-6 when they host teams on Thursday night.
That's interesting. The other interesting thing about Seattle is, and the whole Jalen Milroe dynamic, 3rd-round quarterback who's making a huge buzz up there in Seattle. Are they going to have a package of plays ready for him? Mike McDonald has already pretty much said yes. So you're going to have to prepare for a quarterback who's darn near as athletic as Kyler Murray. In fact, he's one of only 3 quarterbacks, along with Kyler Murray, in the last 10 years to get a max 99 athleticism score coming out of the combine. So there's going to be Sam Darnold, who's going to be a statue behind that janky Seattle offensive line. Then there's going to be Jalen Milroe, who's going to be ridiculously athletic, and I'm real curious to see how they use those 2 guys.
So you close September with a potential rookie quarterback. You open October with what we presume will be a rookie quarterback when you host the Titans on October 5th in Week 5. Number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. So your first 5 games potentially could have 3 rookie quarterbacks. 3 out of the first 5 games you are facing unknown, at least on the NFL level. Again, advantage, disadvantage. The disadvantage is you don't have a lot of game film, although with Cam Ward, you will have at least 4 weeks of tape to look at to figure out what are you doing with that Titans offense?
And you presume it's going to be Cam Ward. I mean, Will Levis says he's not been good, right? 33rd overall pick, 2023. He's going into his third season. He's 5-16 as a starter. He has more interceptions and fumbles lost combined than touchdown passes. So they're going to take every opportunity they can to give the starting job to Cam Ward, and we'll see. He's going to wear number 1. He got the blessing of Warren Moon. He's going to come in. Quite frankly, I thought he should have gone Will Johnson. He should have gone number 0 because he was a 0-star recruit out of high school and went to Incarnate Word and then Washington State, and they end up at Miami. But, Brian Callahan, the head coach, they have a new GM. They just haven't been able to find a quarterback, basically. It was Warren Moon, Steve McNair, and a lot of nothing ever since.
The second regular season visit to State Farm Stadium for the Tennessee Titans. And then back on the road. Now, this is interesting because the Cardinals have only played at Lucas Oil Stadium once before heading into this season. Yet, for a lot of us, Danny, it's a yearly venture to Lucas
I guess
Oil
they're not
Stadium
counting
for the scouting
preseason
company.
games.
Correct.
Because Cardinals
Yes.
played at Lucas Oil in the preseason last year. I remember that game vividly.
It's regular season records with this. So, yeah, the Cardinals at the Colts in Week 6. And, again, I guess we got to ask the question about the quarterback. Is it Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones? We've been told, Danny, it's going to be an open competition. And, I mean, you look at the quarterbacks, just the Cardinals that will have to face through the first 6 weeks. There's some unknown as far as resumes, if you will.
Again, not to be disrespectful. If it's a competition, I mean, is one utterly spectacular, right? That for the Cardinals defense to have to face, you don't still really know what you have in Richardson after all of these years, and you kind of know what you have in Daniel Jones, which is inconsistent. So even if there is a competition, you might not know who the quarterback's going to be. Again, when you're looking at the skill level, I don't see that so much as a true disadvantage for the Cardinals. I do think that is going to be a fun matchup just for the fact of the connections between the head coaches, Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen. They were together. Gannon spent 3 years as a DB coach in Indy earlier in his career. So there's a lot of fun storylines there. And then, of course, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., his dad, in the Hall of Fame with the Colts.
That's right. Yeah, he got a lot of media attention going back for those joint practices last year. So absolutely, that'll be a huge storyline, especially for the Indianapolis media. Steichen against Jonathan Gannon, 2 trash-talking guys when they were the coordinators in Philadelphia, an immense amount of respect for each other. That's the reason why they had the joint practice a year ago, because of the connection and the relationship between those two. Anthony Richardson completed less than 50% of his passes last year. He's erratic at best. He's been working on his mechanics with a bunch of different QB coaches and like Tom House, who's a former pitching coach. So he's doing everything he can, but they owe Daniel Jones one from Jonathan Gannon's first year. Remember that 28-3 lead week 3 against the Giants 2 years ago?
Yes.
And then that blown lead in the second half, and Daniel Jones helped lead the Giants back. So once again, I'm keeping track of the whole payback thing. I got Daniel Jones down. Payback for the Giants 2 years ago.
This time around, we might not be able to attend the Indiana State Fair with the timing, although, Craig, we can take them to some of our favorite spots that we go to for the Combine every year.
So the State Fair typically is not in mid-October. Is that what you're saying?
No, it was during the time we were there for preseason last year.
So August.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's unfortunate for you, Paul. I know you're a big
I know.
fan
You
of
didn't
the
get any
State Fair.
pickle pizza.
What I was gonna that's what was the crazy
Pickle
fair
pizza.
food? Pickled pizza.
It was pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take your word for it. Thankfully, I was not there to taste test. So, next.
We will all be together in Week 7 when the Cardinals host the Packers, the NFL's second oldest rivalry between the Cardinals, or second behind only the Cardinals and the Bears, second straight year in which the Cardinals face the Packers. So we'll get that Max Melton, Bo Melton matchup.
Yes, that's
that was
right.
a lot of fun last year.
Yep.
And a little bit of a different wrinkle. Pay attention, Paul.
Okay, here we go.
Have you checked the Packers roster? Do you remember who is on the Green Bay Packers?
Okay, I actually saw this. I did see this, Danny. Are you aware of a certain former Cardinal who's now a member of the Packers?
It is slipping my mind right now. You guys know something I don't.
Isaiah Simmons.
Oh, wow.
Signed late in the offseason.
Isaiah?
Isaiah, the hybrid that wasn't The last 2 years with the Giants, never made it out of camp. First year with Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort, got traded for the 7th-round pick. He started one game a year ago. I looked it up before we got on, and he only played 1/3 of the special team snaps and like 16% of the defensive snaps.
Yeah, but he had that blocked, field goal, blocked punt,
yep,
right? Blocked field goal.
He did.
I don't think I realized he was no longer with New York. I don't think I saw that he signed with Green Bay. Interesting.
And
revenge game.
Yep.
Paul keeps up with
There's
this
another
stuff.
one. There's another revenge angle. You're right. Every single week we're going to come up with a revenge angle. There's something there. So they think they're going to be able to use him in a multitude of roles. We'll see how that works out for Green Bay. But in terms of, look, they took Matthew Golden, who's a 4.29 guy. They took him in the first round. First receiver they took in the first round in more than 20 years. Of course, they lost Christian Watson, their playmaking receiver, in the regular season finale to the torn ACL. So we presume he won't be available there. But you want a revenge game. Cardinals went to Green Bay, and Matt LaFleur, he had his way with that play calling. Jordan Love looked really good at Lambeau a year ago against the Cardinals, so don't think they haven't forgotten about that.
Getting a win against Green Bay going into the bye week would certainly be nice. The Cardinals with their earliest bye week since 2020. By the way, this is a good reminder here. azcardinals.com/tickets. azcardinals.com/tickets. If you want to be at State Farm Stadium, not only in September and October, but throughout the entire season. The month of November, though, this is the one that we all have circled on the calendar, or at least Dani has circled on the calendar. November 3rd. At Dallas. It is a Monday night football appearance. Cardinals at the Cowboys. Cardinals are 3-0 all-time at AT&T Stadium. Kyler Murray is 9-0 all-time at AT&T Stadium. And I believe Dani Sureck is 2-0 against the Dallas Cowboys since she joined the Arizona Cardinals. So we got a lot of records on the line here on this one.
Revenge game. Mark that down. Mark that down, Paul.
Yep. Dani goes in this column here. Revenge game. That's good.
I was keeping my eye on this one.
Yep.
I had my fingers crossed for Thanksgiving for selfish reasons, but I'll take Monday night game. This is going to be exciting. Kyler Murray has thrived at AT&T Stadium at every point in his career going back to high school football. I think it's an exciting quarterback matchup with Murray and Dak Prescott, and the Cowboys have added some weapons. They brought in George Pickens to be opposite of CeeDee Lamb. They've got a few offensive weapons as well, and then Micah Parsons, right? So the Cowboys have their fair share of weapons. The question mark is new head coach Brian Schottenheimer. Now, he was with the staff prior. So that's going to be a team that I think is exciting to see at that point in the year of maybe they would have found their flow and how the Cardinals can combat that.
At another revenge game, Clayton Adams, former Cardinals offensive line coach, is the new OC with
good.
Brian Schottenheimer.
That's great.
Yep. And that's the reason they hired him, is because they wanted a running game. They were one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL, and they looked at the Cardinals offense the last couple of years, top 5, top 10 in almost every single rushing category in 2 years, with Clayton Adams leading the offensive line. And so, boom, he comes in. He's the offensive coordinator now in Dallas.
And they drafted Tyler Booker, the offensive lineman.
Yep. And the last time they took a guard in the first round, Zach Martin, that worked out pretty well. So if they're going to build from the inside out and rebuild that offensive line, and it needed some additions. The thing about Dallas is the league must know something we don't, because they put them in the season opener NFL kickoff game at Philadelphia. They've given them a bunch of other premier and or primetime time slots, right? They're on the Christmas Day game on Netflix against Washington. And I get it. There's a lot of really good teams in that division. There's a lot of really good rivalries. There are a lot of big TV markets, but Dallas is getting a lot of love this year, I think, from the schedule.
Every year.
It's America's team, Paul. What are you talking about?
They haven't been in an NFC championship game in 30 years. And so, anyway, don't get me started on this one. You know what? This is a revenge game for not only Dani, but myself as well.
First time this season.
Just make sure you bring sunglasses in case the curtains don't
close.
There you go.
That's right.
Coming through the windows down on the sideline, Paul.
That's right.
After a road trip to Dallas, Cardinals will head to Seattle. So the first time this season, back-to-back road games. It comes in Week 10. Cardinals at the Seahawks. Cardinals, again, very good at Lumen Field. And this wraps up your 2 games against the Seahawks. The following week, by the way, Week 11, is a home game against the 49ers. So by Week 11, you have finished facing 2/3 or 2 of your 3 NFC West opponents. You are done with the 49ers. You are done with the Seahawks. By mid-November, without even facing the Rams yet.
We're going to save the Rams because I know we're working our way down the schedule, but I would say if there were one team you were to ask me in the NFC West, I would prefer to not face twice in the back half of the season, given how they typically finish the regular season. My answer would have been the Rams.
No doubt. I completely agree with you on that one. San Francisco, typically at the end of the year, there's a real good chance they're going to be really banged up and really injured in a shell of their former self in terms of the roster. It happens more often than not, seemingly. But yeah, you're going to have Seattle and San Francisco out of the way by week 10. So that's interesting. Going to Seattle at that point of the year could be torrential rain. You could be spared. It's hard to tell at that point. I will say this, at that point in the season, I wonder how different Seattle's going to look. If Sam Darnold isn't, they can't keep him upright and keep him healthy, it could be the Jalen Milroe show.
Drew Lock time.
At that point, who knows? I mean, and from all accounts, they fired their first-year offensive coordinator because he wasn't running the ball. So Seattle wants to run the ball. And Zach Charbonnet might be the featured back this year instead of Kenneth Walker based on some of the buzz coming out of Seattle rookie camp and some of the offseason stuff, just because Zach Charbonnet had a much better yards per carry average than Kenneth Walker. So I'm curious what they're going to look like.
Well, think of the struggle the Cardinals had running the ball against Seattle last year. I mean, you've got to think that's going to be something that is going to be a huge target preparing for Seattle this year.
And you got to figure out an answer to Leonard Williams, number 99. He wrecked both games, especially the game at Seattle. You played him twice in 3 weeks in the middle of last year around the bye, coming in and going out, and Leonard Williams was a big-time problem. You got to figure that out. Just like every other NFC West team has to figure out Trey McBride, Cardinals have to figure out Big Cat Williams.
So your first 3 games in November at Dallas, at Seattle, home to the 49ers, and then you have another home game, so back-to-back home games for the second time this season in 2025, weeks 11 and 12. Cardinals will host the Jaguars on November 23rd, and this is the one that I'm looking forward to because you get to see second overall pick Travis Hunter, a two-way player, and the Cardinals, once upon a time, had their own two-way player in Roy Green. And I remember hearing you, I can't remember if it was on Big Red Rage or Underground, mentioning you would like to see that meeting take place pregame, Roy Green on the field with Travis Hunter.
That is a photo op waiting to happen. Jetstream and Travis Hunter. You know what's interesting, and Roy was really insightful, as you might imagine, as to, look, it's just not feasible for him to play both sides of the ball with any sort of entirety in a game over the course of a season, because by the end of the season, you've played 2 seasons compared to everyone else. And it's interesting, Pro Football Focus, last year at Colorado, Hunter played 1,461 snaps. By comparison, Patrick Surtain, your Defensive Player of the Year cornerback for the Broncos in 17 games, played 978 snaps. So he played 500 more snaps as a receiver and a DB at Colorado in a much shorter season than Patrick Surtain did. And right now the Jaguars are using him at receiver. In the rookie minicamp, it's receiver first, it's DB second, and we know Brian Thomas Jr., their rookie receiver, ended up in the Pro Bowl. So it's a nice 1-2 punch for the Jaguars to come in with a first-year head coach, first-year GM, first-year team president. It's going to be a whole new look with the Jags.
You were talking about how different Seattle could look from earlier in the season to the middle of the season. One of the most exciting position battles for the Cardinals throughout training camp is going to be in the secondary, that cornerbacks room. And we saw a bit of a rotation opposite mostly of Sean Murphy-Bunting outside last year with Starling Thomas and Max Melton. I'm curious to see how the Cardinals secondary is going to look at the start of the season towards this part here in the middle, and where rookie Will Johnson is going to have a role in this. If we're talking about seeing Hunter mostly as a wide receiver, that's going to be an exciting matchup, whoever he's going to be lined up against.
Yeah, is it happening early in the season with Will Johnson, or does it take a little time? Because it did take time with Max Melton last season.
And by the time Jacksonville comes to Arizona, Travis Hunter could be playing a vastly different game than he does in the first half of the season. He might be finding, whether that is mentally or physically, he's not able to be a quote-unquote true two-way player, right? He might be mostly playing on one side of the ball by the time he comes to State Farm Stadium.
Because remember, Deion Sanders at Colorado would give him several days off to recuperate after every Buffs game. Well, he's not going to get that ability, that luxury in the NFL. And by the way, Jacksonville a year ago went 1-8 on the road. So Cardinals welcome Jacksonville to State Farm Stadium for its 20th season.
The month of November ends with a trip to Tampa Bay. This is one of 2 trips outside of the NFC West in which Paul keeps an eye on. Roof, no roof. This has a no roof component to it, but you get Tampa Bay at the end of November as opposed to maybe in September. Is this good, bad? You prefer Tampa Bay on the schedule right now here, Paul?
Could be torrential rain, but it shouldn't be. You shouldn't, visitor sideline, you're going to get the direct sun, so it shouldn't, obviously, it'll be ideal in terms of the temperature in Tampa that time of year. You can't go there without thinking of Super Bowl 43 and standing on the sideline and then envisioning Larry Fitzgerald breaking free for what you thought might be a Super Bowl winning touchdown. And so all the flashbacks will be there on the sideline. But again, a lot of respect for Todd Bowles, and that's going to be a great matchup. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals offense against Todd Bowles and that defense. And every time Kyler and Baker Mayfield hook up, I mean, it's the game within the game. Those 2 guys are competitive to the 99th percentile, but when they play each other, it is off the hook.
Yeah, the fact that Tampa Bay is not in September is great news for us that will be traveling and spending time outside on the field. And that's right after Thanksgiving. That's where we are in the calendar right now.
By the way, Kyler 3-0 against Baker Mayfield in the NFL.
Oh, that's right. I like that. Okay.
So if you want to put that in another
revenge game.
There's a revenge game too. You're right. Absolutely. Okay. We just keep going.
We head to December, and now on December 7th, Week 14, the Rams finally show up on the schedule. Cardinals faced the Rams in Week 2 last season. They have to wait until Week 14 to see them this season. Now, this just might be a quirk, but again, to your point, Danny, this is when Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford are at their best late in the season, those final month and a half.
You don't have majority of a season for Davante Adams to get comfortable with McVay and with Stafford, and I don't love that idea. Now, Davante Adams was not the same receiver we saw him in Green Bay last year with the Jets, and there was so much going on there, so that's understandable. So it's a big question mark of which Davante Adams is LA going to get. I don't love the fact that the first time you are seeing LA is so late in the season just because of the chemistry that they will have by that point and the momentum they always seem to find that late in the season. But the Cardinals are going to have to step up. And there were times, at home, Week 2 last season, Arizona crushed them. And there were moments when they ended last season on the road in LA that Arizona looked good and was competitive. And up until that final play, had the game within their hand. So I'm expecting that to be a competitive game between the Cardinals and the Rams.
Yeah, that's facts right there. Think about that last game, Week 17 at the LA Rams. You had a 4th and 1 in early second quarter, and the Cardinals got stuffed behind a decimated offensive line. They were so injured, and James Conner couldn't pick it up. They were inside the 20. That was a gamble, and then all of a sudden the Rams responded. So that was a big turn in the game. Then obviously the deflection off the helmet of Trey McBride and the critical interception in the end zone. That's how close the Cardinals were to sweeping the Rams a year ago. A Rams team that took the Eagles all the way down in the snow, on the road, in the playoffs to the final few minutes of that postseason game. I think the Rams probably petitioned the league and said, we don't want to play the Cardinals in September any longer, because there have also been times when Cardinals have gone to SoFi in September and jack stomped the Rams as well. So here's the other thing, though. Les Snead is all of a sudden a believer in draft picks again, and I think that's why the Rams, in part, have been so good towards the end of the last 2 seasons, is because a lot of those young players have matured. Now, are rookies going to be as big a factor on their depth chart as years past? So maybe, just maybe, they don't peak towards the end of the season like they have in years past because they don't have all these young guys coming into their own like Jared Verse and Braden Fisk did a year ago.
So after a home game against the Rams, your final 4 games, the stretch where you have 3 of 4 on the road, Week 15, the Cardinals will be at Houston. Cardinals have never won on the road against the Texans, 0-3. It's a kind of a odd little quirk because you don't play the Texans a lot. But again, what are you getting with C.J. Stroud? It's year 3. Are you getting the rookie C.J. Stroud, or are you getting the sophomore slump C.J. Stroud?
Another game the Cardinals were competitive up until the end. It was an interception that sealed the game for Houston. That was when Kaiser White tore his bicep. I will say, as a Dallas native, not many positives I can say about the city of Houston. That stadium, though, NRG, did surprise me with one of my favorite press box spreads. I am looking forward to that.
Wow. Not expecting that.
I know, that was a dark horse.
That was a good one.
That was a dark horse.
There's no revenge or payback game for
Well,
Danny
it's
on that
Houston,
one.
revenge.
No, that's
Revenge.
good. Okay, all right.
Wait a second. I mean, we all liked him when he played here. Christian Kirk is on the Houston
right.
Texans.
Revenge.
Oh, that's right.
He has not
A
faced
Phoenix local.
Okay.
He has not
All right.
faced his former team yet.
Yeah.
This will be the first time.
That is true. And him and Kyler, they were tight. But the respect I had for C.J. Stroud after watching him, that rookie campaign, I mean, guys, I've told you, you can count on one hand how many times Cardinals players have come off the bench and walked up to the white stripe to watch another player in person. C.J. Stroud was that guy 2 years ago. A lot of Cardinals players wanted to see the rookie quarterback, and literally they walked up, they'd watch a series, they'd nod their head, they say, yep, legit. And sure enough, he led Houston to that big playoff win his rookie season. Now, they sort of flattened out a year ago, and look, their offensive line was not good a year ago, and a lot of people drew a correlation between his play and how often he was getting hit and harassed. So that was a difference in that game. If you go back a couple of years ago, if the Cardinals can go in with the revamped pass rush and they can bring some heat and affect C.J. Stroud, I don't think he'll be nearly as effective as he was 2 years ago.
Moving to Week 16, the final home game of the regular season. Cardinals host the Falcons on December 21st. And this, just looking at some of the notes and going back to history, this has always been a sneaky, close matchup. Say what you want about the Falcons and what they do and who might be quarterbacking that team. Kirk Cousins still on the roster last I checked, so not expecting him to be quarterback at that point in late December. But the last three meetings between these two teams, all decided by 2 points or fewer. And for the most part, it's taken a last-second field goal for the game to be decided. So even though it's Atlanta, They're just, whatever it is, them and the Cardinals, it's always close.
The home team has won 13 straight, 17 of the last 18 meetings between these two clubs.
Wow, that is crazy. And you know what? Atlanta finished with the exact same record as the Cardinals a year ago, 8 wins. Here's the thing, though. Atlanta hasn't made the playoffs since 2017. They've had 7 straight losing records. They've tried to fix the pass rush. They, for some reason, gave the Rams a first-round pick to trade back into round one.
Yeah,
and
I didn't
take
understand that at
James
all.
Pierce Jr. to move up. The Rams only had to move down 20 spots, and they get a round 1 pick next year out of it. Certainly didn't like that in terms of the NFC West. But they also signed Leonard Floyd, so they knew it. They finished second to last in sacks a year ago. They had to, Raheem Morris said it, we have to get to the quarterback. So they went all out trying to improve the pass rush. But to me, if you stop their run game, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, you stop the Falcons. I mean, they want to come out. They want to run. I know they have weapons. I get it. They have Kyle Pitts and Drake London. But if they can run the ball, that's where the Cardinals have had issues stopping the Falcons in the past.
Is this the year we see Kyle Pitts do something?
Worthy of his draft position.
Right?
That's
Yes.
fair.
Yeah.
Top 10,
absolutely.
and it just hasn't lived up to the hype.
Not even close. Nope.
Speaking of hype, how about Week 17 on the road at Cincinnati? This is either going to be a Saturday or a Sunday game, but you have the first ever matchup between former Heisman Trophy winners and number 1 overall picks in Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow. You've got the hometown return of Paris Johnson Jr., Bengals draft picks Jonah Williams and Akeem Davis-Gaither face their former teams for the first time, but we are all concerned and wonder what the weather is going to be like for you, Paul, because I did look it up, and if you just Google average temperature in December in Cincinnati, I got a range from 32 to 41 degrees.
Okay, that's not bad.
Okay,
With a
that's
little
the
sun.
average.
That's the average.
But the last 3 years, hasn't there been a crazy range in the temperatures, right? If you take a look at it, in fact, if I can call it up right here we go. So the last 3 Week 17 games hosted by Cincinnati, last year was 60 degrees. In 21, it was 33 degrees. And then in 19, it was 64 degrees. 60, 33, and 64.
So we're thinking more towards the 30 range then, right? If we're going the pattern.
I don't want to speak for you, Paul, but I think when you're looking at weather games the last 2 years, we really have lucked out. Now, you're down there mostly during the game, and I'm down there pregame, so I am right there with you. Not as long, but I feel your pain. But when you look at the last 2 years on the road of open stadiums, Philadelphia, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo, Green Bay, Miami, we really have lucked out with the
Yep.
weather gods. So I think
In other
if
words,
we can
Paul,
handle,
you're due.
We're due.
Well-
I think if it's one game somewhere like Cincinnati, we can handle it.
So it's A, we're due, B, stifle any griping and grousing about the last couple of years because we've had it pretty good. And I would agree with that. And I would say the bigger problem for the Cardinals going to play the Bengals would be Joe Burrow in December and January has been really good. So to me, Cardinals, if they're in a position right here to make a playoff push and they're challenging for that playoff spot, a road win at Cincinnati against Joe Burrow in Week 17, that would be big time. To me, that's
Huge.
going to be a real test as to whether the Cardinals are playoff worthy.
Is Trey Hendrickson a Cincinnati Bengal?
Yeah, who knows?
Is he playing?
After he dissed Zach Taylor the other day, maybe not.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to follow from afar.
And another really exciting position battle when you're talking about Cardinals secondary and the Bengals wide receivers room.
Absolutely.
I mean, some of the best in the league, so that'll be exciting to watch.
Yeah, and 2 years ago, Jamar Chase had a month and one game against the Cardinals. He is really good, and that, yeah, to Danny's point, you're right. I mean, Joe Burrow, yes, but, Jamar Chase, the combination of those two, you let those two get rolling, and game over.
Season ends in Los Angeles, Week 18, January 3rd or 4th. Again, second time in 5 weeks facing the Rams, and you're closing with back-to-back road games for the first time since 2020, 3 of 4 on the road. So, yeah, if you have put yourself in position, if you're the Cardinals and you have put yourself in position to be a playoff team, 3 of 4 on the road is a true test whether you make the postseason or sit home and watch the postseason.
And this could be exciting. If the Cardinals are able to be competitive at that point, you could possibly be playing for first place in the division, right? Like you could be playing for essentially a home game against the Rams at that point. So I would expect a lot to be riding on that game if the Cardinals are still making a push for the playoffs at that point.
I think this matchup is telling. I think the league is telling us what they think of the NFC West. I really do. In years past, the Week 18 matchup in the NFC West has a lot of times been the Rams and 49ers because the league expects those two to be atop. Or back when Coach Double Rainbow had the Seahawks really rolling, and so a lot of times it was the Seahawks and Niners. In the Week 18 matchup, the fact the Cardinals and Rams are in this matchup, and it doesn't happen very often, as you just mentioned, just the 5th time since becoming the NFC West rivals they've met in the final game of the season. I think this says something about what the league thinks about how the NFC West is going to stack up.
Cardinals last season closed with a home game against the 49ers. To your point, Paul, what does the league think of the NFC West? Who are those last two teams battling for first place, maybe a wild card spot? You look at that last week of the regular season, division games, rivalry games. But who do you match up against? Maybe signals, hey, we think the NFC West could come down to the Cardinals and Rams.
And if you look at it, 3 of the last 4 games are on the road. So, and 4 of the last 6 games are on the road for the Arizona Cardinals. That's going to be a challenge. Remember, the Cardinals reclaimed home field advantage a year ago. They won 5 of the last 6 games at home, went 6-3 at State Farm Stadium. So 4 of your last 6 are going to be on the road, including a trip to the Eastern Time Zone in Tampa and then going to Houston, playing C.J. Stroud as we detailed. So it's tough. I mean, you're going to have to fatten up early in the year on New Orleans and Carolina and Tennessee and the Colts because towards the end of the year, the degree of difficulty definitely ramps up.
And I am totally jumping the gun with this, and it's possible that a coaching staff or players even can only do so much for preparation. Think of how the Cardinals season turned out last year after the bye week. So now if you're looking at post-bye week this year and having, 4 of your last 6 games on the road,
Yep.
you are going to have to be mentally tough as nails. You're going to have to be able, if you can't figure it out that first game, you are going to have to quickly turn the page and get things rolling because that was an issue last year for this team.
By the way, you also have the preseason, not the dates and times specifically, but we know the opponents. The Cardinals will have 2 preseason games, home to the Chiefs, then on the road at Denver, and then home to the Raiders, so you and Double Rainbow can get reacquainted
That's right.
on
So
the sideline.
The same
but
three
basically,
teams we
yes.
play every
That's right.
preseason, Craig?
NFC West meets the AFC West.
I don't know much about the preseason, but I know two things. One, Pete Carroll will warm up his throwing arm, for a good 25 to 30 minutes before the game. It's just you can watch him. He'll throw all the routes. And then number two, the Chiefs will come in and probably play their starters for like 3 quarters, because that's what Andy Reid does in the preseason. He plays Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I mean, he will play those guys. So if you're looking to see a preseason game and see the Kansas City Chiefs, odds are you will see their premier players for probably the first half at least.
Especially that first game.
And let's hope, at least personally, that Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. are on that football field in preseason game number 1. I think that, again,
Yep.
we're talking about May, but if you learn from last season, you want to avoid a slow start. You want some more reps and especially competition. Maybe spots aren't quite solidified when you get preseason, but we see some of those starters. If it works for Andy Reid, should work for a lot of other teams as well.
And look, this staff is always evolving, always improving, and I would agree with that. I think after last season, you take the whole season as a whole, and you say, you know what, maybe we do approach the preseason games a little differently, get the rookies some more snaps. And then number 2, all right, what happened out of the bye? Jonathan Gannon said that in his final press conference at the end of the 24 season. Said, you know what, we do need to go back and look at, all right, what can we do better coming out of the bye? Now this year it's totally different. It's week 8. It's not late in the season. You know, you had 7 games to go last year, and maybe the bye had something to do with it. Maybe it didn't. Who knows? But I am curious to see if Jonathan Gannon came to any conclusions in the offseason and as to whether he's going to implement any changes in those 2 areas.
Big change last year, though, with the preseason. Cardinals had 12 draft picks. They have 7 this year, and they've gone a little more veteran heavy when you're looking at the free agency acquisition. So how does that play a role in who you want or feel like you still need to see in preseason games compared to what the decision was last year?
You want a crazy stat? So the
Always.
Cardinals had 13 players out at rookie minicamp. I saw where the Atlanta Falcons had 41.
41?
So it just shows you how differently teams will approach rookie minicamp these days.
By the way, since we've been recording here on this edition of Cardinals Cover 2, it's a yearly thing. It's a yearly competition, I guess you can say, amongst teams, their social media departments, their content teams, as far as how you release a schedule. Bird Gang, if you haven't seen it already, I strongly encourage you to go to the Arizona Cardinals YouTube channel. And we all know Mack Wilson Sr., but did you know he's a rapper? As a hobby, he likes to rap.
I actually did know that because he had Third and Go, the music group with former teammates Jesse Lucchetta and Zach Pascal last year.
See, and I did not know that because usually I'm the last to know stuff like that around here. So it makes sense. We followed our scouting reports, Dani and myself, on that one. But I did see the video, and I couldn't be more impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what my expectations were, but it absolutely blew any and all expectations out of the water. That was really well done on all levels.
A very impressive music video that Mack Wilson Sr., Cardinals linebacker, who goes by Rocketship, is his stage name. He wrote, he produced, he performed in the music video. It was the Cardinals content department with some outside help that they filmed it right here in the facility. Some of his teammates were extras. It's a very impressive performance and video that's been put out. And I know that you can download the song on Spotify and Apple, and then there's going to be, maybe, word on the street is more than one version of the song. So something else Paul doesn't know. So keep that in mind. There's a whole bunch of things that you can find out or listen to or maybe win. So check out not only the official YouTube channel, but our social channels as well to stay up to date on that.
I did ask, how can a guy like me maybe pilfer his way into a T-shirt, a concert T-shirt, or maybe one of the vinyl albums, and they pretty much told me to keep walking. They're going to give those away to the Red Sea and Bird Gang. So, okay, there you go. I'm not eligible. So anybody listening, take your shot at it.
The Arizona Cardinals official YouTube channel, and then on Apple Music and Spotify, search 18 bars or Arizona Cardinals music, because as Dani hinted, it might not be the only song that has been released as of yet here on this Wednesday.
It just
Until it opens the door for you, Paul.
I'm always amazed, like, how talented can you be? I mean, you're already the 0.1% of football players on the planet, and now to do something like that while you also had a charity basketball game, and then you're on the side, you're actually recording the. I mean, really well done, and I'm just beyond impressed at the multi-talented Mack Wilson Sr.
There's also a pretty impressive article, too, that Darren Urban wrote on azcardinals.com. So pretty much however you want to consume 18 bars in the Cardinals schedule release, you can.
And the last thing I'll say, and Mack Wilson said this to Darren at his charity basketball game, he said, you know what, a team that really gets along together typically is a really good team, or at least it's a hallmark of a good team, you know. And so I've seen a lot of that. I don't know about you guys. Maybe it's the fact you've had 28-plus rookies come in, at least draft picks, more undrafted guys that made the team. You know, they've really changed out the locker room, obviously, in 3 years. They have put an emphasis on guys who are deadly serious about the game. So most of the players in there share that DNA trait. And, you know, the roster's a lot younger than it was 3 years ago, and these guys are hanging out and getting along. And if we think back, you know, you zoom out on Cardinals history, some of those teams that got along really well and had that camaraderie were some of the best teams in Cardinals history.
Yeah, well said. By the way, if you want to see Mack Wilson Sr. and company out on that football field at State Farm Stadium, azcardinals.com/tickets. That's azcardinals.com/tickets. And all the news and information on the schedule on azcardinals.com. And on that note, we'll put a lid on this edition of Cardinals Cover 2 presented by Hyundai, proud partner of the Arizona Cardinals. As always, special thanks to our executive producer, Jim Alejandro, our associate producer, Cody Fincher. Special thanks to Alex Greenberg, Dani Sureck, Paul Calvisi. I'm Craig Grialou. We will talk to you next time here on Cardinals Cover 2.
Time to start game planning for the Saints.